Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion.
Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm doing how bands or record companies are trying to rip you off. Now, before I carry on with this, I do want to say this is not all record companies, and this is not all bands. And yes, I do understand it's the music business, but especially in the world of hard rock and heavy metal, where, integrity is supposed to mean something. It's supposed to matter. There seems to be a growing rot, and it stinks of corporate greed. Now, I have no problem with bands and record companies making money from the art that they either make or from the art that they produce and distribute. My issue is with how they are doing it. Maybe it's because making money in the music business has become so challenging. Because of this, certain things are happening to me that, well, don't seem very cool. So that's what I want to talk about today. And first of all, the first thing I want to talk about is, it's a big one, album releases. Now, back in the day, we used to get album releases just as like a LP or CD. Now it seems like you can get 10 different versions of the same album. Yeah, okay, maybe 10's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Now, look, I understand after an album gets released, maybe years later, they might decide to do, a anniversary retrospective with bonus tracks, outtakes, that sort of stuff. That's fine. Maybe you got some demos lying around. Great. Fans love that sort of stuff. It's fantastic. But when you have an album get reissued maybe 6 to 12 months after it was initially released, and then now all of a sudden it's got these bonus tracks, and the real fans have already gone out and bought the album. So now they've got to go and buy it again. Well, they do if they want to get these extra tracks. So, and to me, for someone who likes to buy music, that's annoying. But hey, it's up to the consumer, and I understand that some people, they will want to get everything. They want the Japanese import. They want to get all the different colored vinyl that exists, all the different variations. They want the picture disc, whatever. I know that there's people who do that, and that's fine. But for the standard music fan, that can't afford to buy all these different variations, that just wants the album, but they want the album that has all the songs. And, if there are bonus tracks that you didn't feel were good enough or fit the album in a certain way, then, release it later on, much later on, and release it by itself. No one wants to, have to buy an album you've already bought again just to get that extra disc of bonus tracks. Now, I like the darkness, but I got to be honest with you, I'm not too impressed with what they've done with their recent album release. Now, I really can't be bothered working out exactly how many different variations of their new album, Dreams on Toast, there are. But from what I can see, there are quite a few. And each of these different versions or variations will often have a different bonus track. And I know there's Darkness fans out there who are going to go out and buy all the different versions that exist. But I won't be one of them. And it does annoy me when there's a song I like that I don't have, in my physical collection, because I like to buy a physical product. Yeah, you can have a digital copy of it, but that's why I collect physical media, because I want a physical copy of the music that I like. Saying that, I am not going to buy the same album 3 or 4 times just to get one extra bonus track. And remember, if it's a bonus track, you've got to ask yourself, is it really that good? The thing is, actually, sometimes it is. And of course, some bands, they're just releasing EPs. Okay, I get that. They don't want to bother releasing a full album. Just going to release 3 or 4 songs. Put it out as an EP. But do they charge you EP prices? I don't think so. Often there's very little or no difference. The Motley Crue EP that recently came out is a good example of that. Maybe part of the reason that vinyl has become more popular is because of digital music, because of MP3s. People have started missing, having a physical product. And also, I think some people want to support the artist. They want to support the band. Yes, they know they can get the music for free. They can stream it for free. They can listen to it for free. But they want to support the band. So, great. Some people are buying the albums on vinyl. And that's had a lot to do with the increased popularity of vinyl. But some of these vinyl albums now are not cheap. And, the price is being justified by including a lot of extras people don't really want. They want the music. They want the record. And then sometimes they're putting albums out on 2 LPs when they really don't need to be. But by doing that, you increase the price. You increase the price that you can charge for that album. It's 2 vinyls, so it's going to cost more. And plus, I'm seeing albums being released with all these, extra things. Poster, a postcard, a key ring. But they're not free. They just increase the amount that they're going to charge for that record. And it's not the record shop's fault. They have to have their markup. They're just selling it for what they have to sell it for to make some money. So what's happened is it's sort of like now, with all these extras they're throwing in, it's like they're trying to combine the selling of merch with the selling of the album. And then, of course, you've got your limited editions that are coming out. And I've already talked about this. This is where FOMO comes in, that fear of missing out. Hey, maybe there's only going to be 1,500 copies. They'll even put that limited to 1,500 copies. But, a lot of the times too, these limited editions, 1,500 copies, they're reissues. There were no actual additional costs to make the album. So is it going to be cheaper than a new release? Nope. In fact, it's often more expensive. So reissue is more expensive sometimes than a brand new release. Now, I know that there could be some business reasons for this. I know that, companies, they sometimes, have to buy the rights to the music, so they're kind of like gambling on the success of reissuing a band's album on vinyl. But to me, what I can see, it's making the prices of vinyl very unpredictable. And let's be honest, the companies that are putting these reissued vinyls out know you can't get it on vinyl. Or if you can, it's big money because it's super rare. And then, Record Store Day, you've got that now, and that used to be great. But I mean, now it's sort of like, if it's got a sticker that says Record Store Day on it, it automatically seems to just up the price. Let's be honest. record store day, from what I can see, it just seems to be quite often a whole lot of live concerts, reissues, or greatest hits. Look, I don't want to be negative because, as you probably know, I love records, I love vinyl, and I want people to be successful in the music industry. If you've seen my room, you know I love collecting music, and I love supporting artists, especially artists I like. But I also don't like being ripped off. As I said, I think one of the reasons people want to buy physical media, they want to buy physical product, is to support the artist. Because yeah, sure, I can listen to it for free, but I want to, support the artist. So I'm gonna buy their music. And that's how I've tried to support the artist. Of course, some people, they don't want to buy records or CDs. They're quite happy streaming. And they might decide, okay, I'm not going to buy the album, but I'm going to support the artist by buying merch. But merch isn't cheap. Price of merch has definitely gone up. Otherwise, people want to support the band, of course, by going to see them in concert. But that's also going to cost you some money. Again, the cost of concerts has really gone up. And how many bands have said, this is our final tour. This is going to be the final concert. Okay. I'm not going to name names, but I think you know who I'm talking about. By saying it's the final tour or concert, automatically it jacks up the price. And of course, it also generates more interest. Hey, I'm never going to be able to see this band again. It's my last chance. And then a year later, they're touring again. It used to be bands toured to sell their albums. Now it's kind of switched. And if anything, they might make albums so that they can tour. So like I said, concert prices have really shot up massively. And then, of course, you got your VIP tickets, the meet and greets. It used to be, if you made enough effort, you could actually find the band, talk to the band, ask them to sign some things, and it wouldn't cost you a thing. These days, if I see a band, and maybe if, see a band member, if I go and fist bump them in a concert, one of the band members is then going to probably, ask me for my credit card details. But hey, I get it. It's not easy to make a living from making music. It's really hard these days. And, bands deserve to make a living. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. And it's often not the band's fault that these things are happening. It's the machine that is behind them, the record companies, the management. I'm sure they're the ones that are pulling the strings. So, if you can try and get your money directly to the artist, do that. Go to the shows, buy directly from the band, and promote them, talk about them on social media. Anyway, that's just my little take on what's been happening as far as record companies and bands and how things are maybe just getting a little bit too expensive. Again, I'm going to keep buying physical product. I'm going to keep supporting bands. But, I just think that you got to make sure that you're being honest about it and being honest with fans and giving fans a fair deal. All right, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you later.